The Commission of Inquiry into State Capture gets underway this coming Monday. Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will head up the commission set up to look at corruption at all government levels. What are some of the things that are likely to come out? To help us unpack this is, of course, Susan Comrie from the AmaBhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism. Good evening, Susan. Thanks very much for your time. Well, the commission has actually just released a statement talking about when and where the hearings will start on Monday and what's going to happen. The chairperson, Chief Justice Zondo, will open the proceedings, followed by an opening statement on behalf of the legal team by Advocate Paul Pretorius, followed by a presentation of reports. Of course, that's only procedural issues and venues and so on. The importance of this commission in the life of South Africa, given what we've gone through in the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of put into words how important it's going to be. I mean, it really has the potential to kind of clean the slate for us, not just to sort of, collect evidence and potentially remove people who are in positions of power within those SOEs who've been complicit in this, but also just in terms of for the country to understand what's gone wrong. I mean, if you look at like some of the things that we've been looking at recently around the way in which sort of BEE laws have been kind of perverted and taken advantage of, and just for us to understand how these kind of noble goals have been subverted over the past 5-6 years, and just how much we've lost in terms of local industries, in terms of local businesses, local development. I think that's going to be really cathartic for the country.
Well, there's this body of information that organizations like yours, AmaBhungane, have unearthed, over the past couple of years. But how easy or difficult do you think it's going to be for that to come before the commission, backed by even more evidence?
Well, the thing is that as much as the information that we have is an overwhelming amount for journalists, but it's still a tiny fraction of the amount of information that's potentially out there. The Gupta leaks, as amazing as they are, the way that I try to describe it to people is that it's like looking through a keyhole into a room. You can see some of what's going on, but there's a lot that you can't see that's happening. So, hopefully there's still a lot more information that will come forward. The challenge, of course, will be is that, some of the people coming to the commission may take the tactic that they'd like to just overwhelm the commission with, with information that's not necessarily going to be useful. What we're really hoping to see is that the Commission has people there who have the kind of institutional knowledge and the insider's knowledge to take them through it. So, whether that comes in the form of journalists and researchers who can sort of draw the connections for them and say, look, this person is connected to that person, this person goes back to that deal. But I think what they also really crucially are going to need, they're going to need insiders to turn, people who have the inside knowledge, who make the decision that now is the time to say, I'm going to come clean about my role in this, whether it's in exchange for some kind of leniency from the National Prosecuting Authority. I think if they get that, if they get someone like Anaj Singh, someone like Salim Essa, someone who can come forward and can say, I can paint the full picture for you, then I think we're really going to see some amazing stuff coming out.
Well, I mean, you're already seeing people clamoring for consequences for those who have been involved. Yeah. Now, that cannot be an incentive for Anaj Singh, the example you've just cited, to actually come forward. And on the other hand, given the how the stakes are high for so many of the people who may have been involved, it may just be too risky for those who actually have the information to come forward. Add to that what the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan spoke about this week in Parliament, that those who are inside state-owned enterprises, for example, who have been involved in the looting, are actually getting a lot more desperate and finding better ways of doing what they have been doing all along. And not only are they doing that, they are mobilizing powerful forces in society to actually protect them.
Absolutely. I mean, but I think, if you look at the extent to which an organization like Transnet or Eskom, the extent of the capture that happened, it required so many people who not necessarily were benefiting from it, but who were there sort of, between a rock and a hard place, it's my job, or, so I have to sort of go along with this. There are many people who have information that I think could be very, very valuable to the Commission. But as you say, I mean, that's one of the, I think that's one of the urgent things to drive home to people, is that this is not something that happened in the past. This is not a crime that happened in the past. This is an ongoing crime. There are people who are still there in those positions of power and who are still in positions able to carry on looting or to hide what's happened. I mean, if you look at Transnet, for instance, the massive train contract where some of the biggest, allegations of corruption have happened, those are trains that are still being delivered. We're still paying for those trains. We're still going to have to pay back those loans. Some of those loans came with sort of commissions and kickbacks for the Guptas. So, this is a financial burden on the country for the next 10, 20 years. And we really have an opportunity now to say, actually, if companies were involved in wrongdoing, if they were paying facilitation fees and things like that, we have an opportunity to say, actually, we're not going to carry on honouring those contracts and paying you out the billions that you got under those deals. So I think there's a degree of urgency around it that we actually have an opportunity to sort of stop more money leaving the country.
There's a degree of urgency, but should we factor in a room for disappointment as well? I mean, look at what has been happening. A lot of people thought that by now we would be having something on the Guptas and they'd be here facing some charge or the other, and that hasn't happened. And by the look of things, doesn't look like we anywhere near actually bringing them to book.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, it's difficult to know. The court systems move incredibly slowly. As a journalist, it's amazing even to us how slowly they move and how frustratingly long it takes, for cases to be wrapped up. At the same time, though, I think we have seen, that the cases that have been, the investigations that have been done, what's come out so far hasn't really been up to standard. We've tried as far as possible to put information into the public domain to explain, how we've made these connections, how we've tracked the money flows and things like that. It's frustrating for us when we put that out there and it's not met with action. I mean, hopefully, though, this will be sort of a step towards kind of galvanizing the other arms of state, which are investigating state capture and which have the power to start arresting people, to start bringing cases, to really sort of ramp up their game.
Okay. Susan, that's what we're going to leave it. Thanks very much for your time and insights. AmaBhungane Centre for Investigative Journalism's Susan Comrie.